Well, hello, this is Shar from the District Resource Center, and I'm sending you this video email because you've recently been appointed as a district affiliated pastor, and I just wanted to make sure that we got you this information as soon as possible of the District Affiliated Pastor Handbook. This is going to be extremely helpful for you. So you're going to see, if you actually print out the handbook and look at it, that there's different tabs, and we're going to look at the table of contents right now. I'm going to go through this quickly just because you have the time. When you have the time, you can go back and you can review this video. We're going to look at the rules of order. That's going to be under tab 1. Now, the rules of order for every district affiliated church, your bylaws have been suspended, and your constitution and bylaws have been suspended for district affiliated churches, and you are to be governed by the rules of order. Ta-da! The rules of order. So it's really important that you are familiar, that you and your advisory committee, it's very important that you refer to them as an advisory committee, because your actual board members are the three executive directors, the three executive officers, that being the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the secretary treasurer. That's going to make it a lot easier on you when you want to make decisions. You can present ideas to your advisory committee, but your board is really the three executive officers. So if there's things that you need to get passed or you need to work around, if something that really specific in the church, you can get directive communication directly from the executive officers. But any purchase over $2,000, 2,000 separate individual purchases need to be approved by the assistant superintendent. So you would just shoot Dr. Samuel an email. If he's out of the country or out of town, you can shoot me an email. I'll make sure he gets it, and we can just check with you. We can look at your finances, make sure that money is in there. We really try to have same day turnaround time on that, because we know it's important and it's imperative to you to get things fixed and purchases made in a timely manner. All property must be in the name of the district. Any loans or leases that need to be approved through the executive presbytery. So if you're wanting to go out and get a loan or a lease or on your building, you're wanting to lease out your building, maybe you have a building and you want to lease it out to another church, all those kinds of things need to be approved by the executive presbytery. The executive presbytery meets 10 times a year, so just a heads up that sometimes on those issues we might not be able to have a 24-hour turnaround time period on that. That's going to take a little bit longer and a little bit more forethought, as it should, because it's a loan or a lease. Also, each church must follow proper procedure in screening their volunteers. And each district affiliated church must provide the DRC with a voided check to have their fire and liability and workers' compensation insurance automatically withdrawn from the church's checking account. Now you might be thinking, well, what does that mean? Years ago, every district affiliated church paid their own bill directly to Church Mutual. Each district affiliated church must go with the insurance carrier recommended by the district, which is Church Mutual. Years ago, each church used to be able to pay their own bill, but what we found was, because it was an umbrella policy, that if one church was late on their payment or failed to make a payment, then all of our churches were in jeopardy with their insurance. And we definitely don't want that to happen to any of our churches. So what we do is we pay the bill each month for all of our district affiliated churches, and then we go in and we automatically debit from your church's checking account your amount from Church Mutual. So that's what that means. We have a lady in our office. Her name is Gladys Sotelo. She is working in our insurance department out of accounting, and she can work directly with you in getting that ACH all set up, letting you know how much your insurance is going to be each month. Also, under tab 2, there's going to be the operating policy for the church. Tab 3 is the Youth Children's Workers Policy, and then we get into some forms. Each year it's important that you send our office a proposed budget. Tab 5 talks about Cheney and Associates. Each district affiliated church, as directed by the district presbytery, has to use Cheney and Associates as their primary bookkeeping service. And so that does come with a cost specific, and it can be different for each church. $125 a month covers the bookkeeping. It covers, I think, 1 or 2 checking accounts. But if you have a special need and your church doesn't write that many checks, you can always ask for a reduction. Also, tab 6 is the World Missions Giving Credit. We're going to go through these individually, so I know I'm moving kind of fast here. Tab 7 is a housing allowance form, which is extremely important, and I'll go over that with you. Tab 8 is advisory committee members, a sample agenda and some sample members, things I've put together to make your life easier. And then tab 9 is the annual sectional leadership district church tour. So under tab 1 here, we have the rules of order. And these are going to be really comprehensive rules. It's going to talk to you about relationships with other churches. Article 2 is going to talk to you mainly about property, about rental, third-party leases, that you're not allowed to have debt or contractual obligations. Now listen, Pastor, this is really important because some of our district-affiliated churches have started opening credit cards, and we are now having to deal with that and say, no, I'm sorry, district-affiliated churches are not allowed to have credit cards. So you work on a reimbursement system, or you work on a bank card. Let's see, Article 3 is all about finances. Article 4 is church participants. Now, you might say, what does this mean? In district-affiliated churches, we don't have membership, so there's not members of a district-affiliated church. We have church participants. So here's all the information. It actually works quite the same. It's just a different form of word to help our churches in regards to, because actually the members of your church and also the board members are the 3 executive officers. That's the way the corporation has been set up. This gives you, Pastor, some flexibility in regards to, it's very different from a member than having a participant. So, for instance, church participants, when you were elected, when you weren't actually elected, you were appointed, but what Dr. Huddleston did is he allowed the church to have a vote of some kind, not an actual vote as membership, but he just wanted to get a consensus of the congregation of how they felt about you, about how they felt about your preaching style, whether they wanted you to be their pastor or not. The actual appointment came from Dr. Samuel Huddleston's office as the assistant superintendent and as the district presbytery. That is because you have church participants. If you had membership and a church board, it would be completely different. The membership would vote you in, and the church would the board would ratify that. Article 5 is duties of the pastor. This gives you some information, lets you know the spiritual oversight that you are giving to the church, and also it tells you about the advisory committee, their capacity to act, when they meet, the duties of the secretary treasurer. And also if the church isn't sufficient, doesn't have sufficient qualified membership to act. All of this information is here directly for you. Also, we have qualifications and elections. This is in regards to the selection of a pastor, so you can actually read through this and see what actually happened while you were becoming appointed. And then it closes out with some information on business meetings. So this is going to be very helpful for you, how to actually suggest an agenda of how to run a business, an annual church business meeting, which we ask that you have that take place between January and March, that you have your annual church business meeting between January and March. Tab 2 we're going to look at, it's the operating policy for the church treasurer. This is vital. It lets you know all those things about, there's a 2 people minimum to count the offering and they can't be related. So a lot of times pastors will come in and they'll say, well, the only person I can trust is my spouse. But if you have an advisory committee, we ask that you use 2 people to count the offerings, make the deposits, who are not related to you. This is just kind of a common sense thing here. So check writing, all of this information, contributions, this is going to be important for you to read through and also hand to the church secretary for them to read through as well. And there's the account reimbursement. Here's our policy for any sort of reimbursement plan. And let's see here. And there's an operating policy for major purchases. Again, anything requiring $2,000, over $2,000, requires approval of the assistant superintendent. So let's see here. Pastoral compensation. This can actually be given to your advisory committee for them to look over. This would be beneficial, and it would behoove you actually for them to look this over. The different categories of how they can assist you as the pastor and how they can best help you also in regards to housing allowance. Tab 3 is background screening for those working with minors. And let's see, moving right along here, I don't want to keep us too long. You can read all this information. I want to make sure I get to housing allowance. This is your proposed budget form. Each year we just ask that each church send in a proposed budget of what they're looking at the following year. Tab 5 is more information in regards to Cheney and Associates, what it is that they will be doing for you and for your church. And there's some information you can fill out and you can send into them directly. One of the ladies there in the office, her name is Donna, and she is fantastic, and you can work directly with her. There's a deposit report, so you can actually fill out these 4 things on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, upload them and send them over to them, or you can work through Xero, their cloud-based financial software. Here's World Ministries Giving Credit, and this is under tab 6. World Ministries Giving Guidelines. If you are giving to a world ministry through Springfield, you won't have to fill out one of these forms, because you will already be getting World Ministry Giving Credit if you send to a world missionary in Springfield. That's already a given. However, if you give to a different entity, let me see here, we have all of these things written out for you. Areas that don't get credit, areas that do get credit. Let's see here. I think they're okay. So areas that don't give credit is non-AG ministries. Areas that do get credit are district-sponsored things like Teen Challenge, General Council endorsed schools, funds received by the district and forwarded to headquarters for receiving an AG credit. Funding at the local church level must be reported, for instance, AIM or MAPS trips, BGMC projects. So if you have any of these things going on the side and you want to make sure you get giving credit, you fill this out. And for each specific event, let's say you take a missions trip with your church overseas, or actually you even do something domestic within the States. Let's say you go to San Francisco's rescue mission and you do a domestic outreach there. You would just put in the amount of money that it cost, and you send us over to the superintendent's office for travel, food, lodging, all of that information, and you will get World Missions Giving Credit from Springfield for all of that giving. This is probably the most important here, is the housing allowance under tab 7, is the housing allowance request. It's vital that you fill this out annually, only if the numbers change. This right here will ensure that you do not have to pay federal income tax on your housing allowance. So it's extremely important that you fill this out. If you have any questions, you can give me a call. Now, you still do have to pay the Social Security tax on it, but you don't have to pay federal tax on this. So let's say that maybe it's $24,000 a year is your housing allowance costs for this includes all of your house insurance, repairs, furnishings. Maybe you're actually going to be buying a new couch. Make sure you set this amount higher rather than lower. You can always adjust down. You can't bump up. Also, it can't be backdated. So if it's August and you turn this in, it will only count from August through December. It's not going to count from January. So this is actually good for as many years as you want it to be until this number right here changes. So you don't have to fill it out and turn it in every year, only if the numbers change. Let's see, the next tab here is for whomever you decide to become your advisory committee members. Actually, if you read through the rules of order, you'll see that there's actually a way to go through and select those advisory committee members. Sometimes you can actually go ahead and appoint them if you contact Dr. Huddleston. Maybe there's a situation in the church that's going on and you feel like you actually have specific advisory committee members that you need to appoint. But we just like to have their information and their names on hand to show that you are fully functioning as a nonprofit corporation, because each of our district affiliated churches are incorporated individually. And then I've also included an agenda. This is kind of like a template that you can fill out for your advisory committee meetings. Thought this would be helpful for you in each season that you're in, whether it's January or February, all of these different, which areas of the church to review. So I thought that would be helpful for you. Again, if you have, and here's a copy of just some sample minutes that you can hand the secretary of the advisory committee as they're filling out minutes. Some have called our office and said, hey, do you have some sample minutes? So these are just some helpful templates for you. Again, if you have any questions, my email address is cblair@agncn.org. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.